This morning we are going to have the privilege and the honor of observing the work of Harry Aponte. Harry Aponte, who has a special interest in low-income and minority families, as well as the person of the therapist in the therapeutic process, is a social worker who is currently in private practice, and he's been associated with the Menninger Foundation and the Philadelphia Child Guidance Clinic. Harry approaches families with a structural family therapist's emphasis on transactional patterns in the here and now, and an existentialist commitment to personal responsibility, the importance of life goals and values, and the centrality of the relationship between the therapist and the client. Working with him this morning is Naomi Garrett, who is a licensed professional counselor in private practice and is a second-year intern at the Southwest Family Institute. It's my privilege and pleasure to present to you Harry Aponte.
Good morning. This segment of the presentation is really going to be Naomi Garrett's segment because I know nothing about the family itself. So she is going to be orienting you and she's going to be orienting me so that we can all get some sense of who they are and what problems they've brought to the therapy and how long you've been working with them and what you're doing with them, and just about where you think they are right now. No.
Ready?
Ready, ma'am.
This is a relatively new family. This is actually their second session. So they're in the beginning phases of understanding what's going on. The oldest child is Katrina. She's 14. She's the identified patient in this family as a result of an attempted overdose while she was living with her grandmother in a small rural town outside of Texas. There are 3 children. Katrina, Robert, and Clarence are from a previous marriage for Diana. And Kenny is the youngest child, who's 5, who's from her current marriage. Harry, you can help me understand if you need to know more about them.
Okay. You had only one session with them?
We've had one session.
Well, why don't you tell us about that session then?
During that session, Katrina was very controlling in the session. She didn't want to talk much about what had been happening in the family. As a matter of fact, she used a lot of silence, and that was her way of dealing with what was going on. She appeared to be very nonchalant or not really attached to the family. Yet at the same time, she seemed to have a lot of authority and control over the 3 younger children. During that session, it was also difficult to get her to talk about what had been happening at the time that she decided to do her overdose. One of the key things that surfaced from that session, however, is that Katrina seemed to be in the role of the mother. She had a lot of influence with the younger children. She appeared to be a real caretaker and a real disciplinarian. Mom felt some guilt about that, and she readily acknowledged that. She had not had a mother-daughter relationship, but Katrina was has always been an adult. So one of the things that we asked the family what they would like to have happen. That was not real clear for them. Mm-hmm. So they're pretty much still trying to decide how to relate with each other. The stepfather did not attend that session.
He didn't want to?
He didn't want to because he says he does not like being around crowds, being around a lot of people. So he chose not to come. He was scheduled to come today, However, he had a job interview. So that's what kept him from coming today. The family, the mother is the only parent working right now. The father was laid off.
What is she doing?
She works as a housekeeper for an educational institution, barely a little bit over minimum wage. She's also trying to keep the family together in terms of financing, paying the bills. So she's carrying a lot of that responsibility right now. Katrina is continuing periodically to run away from school, which was one of the presenting problems that was also presented during the session. She skips school. She doesn't like to go to school. And she's also been dating older men since she was about 13.
Older men being?
Older men being 18, 19, 20, 21.
Did they get a focus for themselves?
The focus that came out of that session, since this was getting to know them time, was that asking the mother and the daughter if how they would like to spend their time together, because they seem real distant. Mm-hmm. And where we left that session was that Katrina and the mom were going to look at how they could become closer and start spending more time together. And that was where we got the focus from that session. And for the second session, they were unable to keep the appointment for financial reasons. So they missed the session and did not call to say they were not coming.
Okay. Naomi, what kind of feeling did you get from your interaction with Diana, the mother?
The feeling I got from interacting with Diana is that she's really sincere about wanting her family to be able to get along better, to have more cooperation. She's primarily, at this time, the way she's controlling and being a parent to Katrina is allowing her to do what it is she chooses to do. She sets no limits for her. She does not say no to her request. For example, I want to go and spend the night with a friend. The mom does not say no to her request. She negotiates how that can happen with her when she really does not want her to be in that person's company.
Did you convey to the mother your reaction to that?
Yes, I have.
And what happened?
The mother acknowledges that Katrina does have more power than she has. That she recognizes that she's not able to really control or discipline the behavior.
And where did that leave you?
It left me wanting to see them some more, for one thing, and helping them decide how they can be more...
Did you have a feeling that you could move this lady, or did
yeah.
you feel a little helpless at that moment?
At that moment, I felt a little helpless, but I also felt that she could move along in terms of restructuring the family and becoming more of a parent and be able to discipline Katrina more.
Did anything happen between her and Katrina in the session?
Katrina was pretty controlling with silence.
Controlling her mother also?
Yes, with silence.
And her mother couldn't get through that?
No. Mother had difficulty getting through the silence. The silence did get broken through once I started looking at what was happening between the two of them and talking about Katrina's power and how the mother felt in that process. So that was that point where the silence did begin to break a little bit.
And then what happened between them?
Katrina was still pretty much in shock of what her mother had to say. Her facial expression, her nonverbals was like, I didn't know Mom felt this way. And I asked her...
You mean her guilt about...
Yes.
Oh.
And trying to protect her daughter. So Katrina appeared surprised that what Mom had been doing, even though it wasn't working real well, was trying to protect her from making some of the same mistakes she made when she was 16, which is the dating older men. And that Mom also felt helpless when Katrina would run away, not go to school, and become defiant.
What about the younger kids? Did they participate?
The younger kids participated in the session, somewhat from the standpoint of recognizing that Katrina does have more control and more authority with them than Mom does.
They acknowledge that?
They acknowledged that.
Okay.
The question was, who's able to deal with the kids better? And I said, I have a hunch it's Katrina, and the boys went, yes, they acknowledged that.
Did you make any connection with Katrina?
The first session, I didn't feel that I had made a connection with her. I felt that I had connected more with the mom and been able to make a connection there. Now today when they arrived, it was interesting that I found more of a connection with Katrina because I spent some time with them before we all went into our went our separate ways. And she was much more talkative, yet she was still presenting that she's going to be the tough lady. She's not scared, she's not nervous.
Okay. All right. Did the younger kids offer anything else in that first session?
Not during the first session. No, they weren't real talkative.
Did they really get to talk about the overdose?
No, that was at the point where Katrina would absolutely not talk. She would offer no information. She would not even want to talk about it, and that was her comment. I don't want to talk about that.
Did that mean that that her mother and her sibs couldn't talk about it because she didn't want to talk about it?
No one talked about it. It just got left aside, and the boys were real aware of what had happened, and they were going, yeah, we know, yeah, we know. And when she said, I don't want to talk about it, it went away. There was no way to get it back on the table.
I see.
She became silent.
Do you know how serious this gesture was? This overdose?
Serious enough for her to be hospitalized.
Oh, she was?
Yes. Stomach aches, stomach cramps. She took aspirin. How many, I asked. She would not identify how many. But it was serious enough for her, apparently, to be hospitalized.
Do you know how long?
Overnight. And Katrina has also had contact with therapy as a result of that incident in the rural town of Arkansas. And
so she's in therapy?
She's not now. She just moved back to Dallas with her mother.
I see.
But her overdose was in March, and she was hospitalized. And at that point, she was put into the mental health system in Arkansas.
All right. Okay.
So
Now, you said something about Arkansas and then Dallas. I mean, the whole family was living in Arkansas?
No, just Katrina.
With whom was she
living? With her grandmother.
With her grandmother. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Any mention of the biological father of the three older ones?
Not as a result of our first session. We didn't get that far into the.
Do you know whether the man's around?
No, I'm not sure whether he's around now or not. Mm-hmm. The family has been in Dallas a total of 6 years. Mm-hmm. And they've moved quite frequently.
So you don't know whether he's a factor?
I don't know whether he's a factor or not this time. Okay.
Do you have any special interest for today about what you'd like to see happen today?
What I would like to see happen today is be able to get the issue of the suicide on the table and what was going on in the family at that time.
Okay.
And how it might be still impacting the family.
I don't promise that. Okay.
Do your best.
All right. Okay, we're done, folks.